tracks.
Mm.
I hate open source software sometimes. All right, we're good. Live stream's good. Let's get started. It's Thursday, June 17th, 2021. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we are talking about hotels and motels. So, PAX Online is coming up in July, but they didn't actually give us that much time to record and upload a panel for that. So we actually kind of had to scramble.
The panel acceptance and the due date to submit the panel were very close to each other. I think it's like, did you expect us to like have this panel prepared before you accepted it? Or like, well, I don't know what the...
Yep. Well, I've realized that most people who do panels for online anythings just get a bunch of people in a Zoom, start recording, go for an hour, stop recording, and that's what they upload.
Well, that's not what we're.
That's not what we do.
Not only is that not what we do, but they specifically asked for people to not do that and to do more.
Yep. So we actually had to do a lot more, and since we still couldn't get together in person yet to get that going, we had to come up with a moderately complex pipeline for me to play Atari games. But seems like it worked. But that's why we skipped the show on Tuesday.
We might be able to get together soon. The numbers, at least in New York, are actually down now for real. Not like before where it looked like they were down, but now they're really down.
I am confident the next video the two of us make that is not just this live stream, we'll record it in person. So stay tuned on that. But yeah, so we skipped Tuesday to the Tuesday Geek Nights to record the panel. So I'd have time to edit it because I got to upload that thing like this weekend. And
that's a shame.
The one time we skip a Tuesday episode, as opposed to the other episodes of Geek Nights, happens to be when not only does Nintendo do their Direct, but they announced like fucking everything.
There was a big time Nintendo Direct. Well, it was E3, I guess, but who cares about that?
Yeah.
But yeah, regardless, the Nintendo Direct had all kinds of big time announcements, only one of which was one that was anticipated, which is, some more information about Breath of the Wild 2, or at least the
eagerly awaited
Breath of the Wild.
There's definitely a Midna Twilight Princess connection with that music and that coloring.
Maybe. Who knows? But also the news that everyone thought was going to be, right, that all the game journalist places were like, oh, they're going to announce a new updated Switch, like a Switch Plus or a 4K Switch or something like that.
I note that I was not predicting that because I did not think that's what they were going to do.
Well, and then they did not do that. And then I saw at least two articles that were like, of course, Nintendo wasn't going to say that at E3. Here's why. And it's like,
oh, yeah, sure. You can publish that article.
The same journalistic outfit that said they were gonna? I did not going to bother to go dig up and see, but maybe there's a good chance you were.
I mean, it's much like whenever we can't come up with the show topic, I go delete a show we already did. And then magically, oh, hey, it turns out we never talked about hotels. There's an episode.
Yeah, but I mean, they could have just done put up something that was like, we were wrong. It's like,
Didn't we do a whole show years ago that was like things we were wrong about? Like predictions we made that were just fucking wrong.
We could do that show every day.
Yeah, we're wrong moderately often. You know what we're not wrong about often is judging anime by its cover, which we haven't done in a while.
We're wrong about it more than 0 times.
Yeah, we were definitely wrong about that ARM whatever show. X-ARM. That show was not what I thought it was going to be. Anyway.
I don't remember.
Yeah. Anyway, there is one bit of news that we think is worth talking about today from that Nintendo announcement because it was not
Well, it's
something...
not from that Nintendo announcement.
Well,
it
true.
It was from today, the day after the Nintendo announcement. They announced there's going to be a Pokemon MOBA called Pokémon Unite. And basically the way it's going to work, at least, on paper, it seems interesting. But then again, there have been games in the past, like what was it, Pokemon Conquest, right?
Yep. Pokemon Conquest crossed Nobunaga's Ambition. Final Fantasy Tactics.
It was called Pokemon Conquest, I think.
I forget because it was terrible.
Regardless, it was a game that on paper seemed great, but in reality was not. So this game seems similar to me. It's giving me the same vibes. Pokemon Unite. It's a MOBA where you control a Pokemon, which makes perfect sense for a MOBA, right? You start the match at level 1.
Yep.
You evolve as the match goes on.
MOBAs love to make you level shit up during the course of the
Pokemon
match.
have 4 special abilities already. So do MOBA characters. It's like you can't find a better perfect match than that, right? And on paper, the way the game is going to work is that you go around killing environment, stuff, and jungling, as the MOBA people call it, right? Fighting AI-controlled enemies, and also fighting the opponent Pokemon. And every time you get a kill, you get some points. And then the interesting part that I really like on paper, again, I had to emphasize that so much, is that in order to actually cash the points in to make them count, you have to go deep into enemy territory, survive, and I guess touch the equivalent of like a basketball hoop to dunk them in, right? It's like, and then they count. And I really like that aspect of go deep into enemy territory, because I always felt like when playing, I guess Dota is the one I played more. I didn't really play League of Legends. Maybe I did half a tutorial or something one time, but
we did play Heroes of New Earth for like 4 hours total.
Yeah. I played Dota 2, I guess, the most, which is a handful of times.
I think I played more auto chess than I played any MOBA.
I definitely played more auto chess than any MOBA.
Well, talk about a flash in the pan there.
If you go, I was always disappointed in that I would play Dota 2, and often I would be able to get all the way through to the enemy territory, like right up next to, what's it called? The Ancient, right? The thing you're trying to destroy, the main goal of the game, right? Destroy the thing. And I would be right up next to it, and there would be no enemies there except for the little weak AI ones. And there was basically no reward for doing that. Like, it's early in the game, and I'm always
Scott,
damaging
if we're playing football and we're on offense and you've got the ball and I'm not a eligible receiver and I just run all the way to the enemy end zone and hang out there, I am not rewarded for that.
But there is no ball in Dota. Like, I'm damaging it. Like, it's like, I felt.
I mean, I guess I could run over there and start kicking the goalposts or attack the ref. I don't know.
No, but it's like there is no having the ball in a MOBA. It's like the goal is to just get yourself to destroy the, right? Everyone's a ball, basically, right? Or a partial one. And I felt like it was like, if you go over there and just start attacking it, it's like you pretty much just die and are ineffectual, and it even heals and stuff. It's like, or, you do so little damage to it, it doesn't matter. I felt like that wasn't cool. So this actually, I like it, at least on paper, that you can go.
But there's a lot of
deep into enemy territory is rewarding.
There's a lot of ways a game like this could go wrong.
Oh, so many ways. Until
we know the details, the idea of Pokemon MMO is a very good idea, but execution is literally all that matters, because for example, Pokemon Go was good at a lot of things, but in terms of a game that had mechanics, not much going on there.
It was not, So this is going to be free, at least for some amount of play,
which is good. Red flag in some ways.
Try it.
Yeah, but it's a red flag in some ways, because games that start free often either have microtransactions or are like bottom tier shovelware, and they're free because they monetize other ways.
While that is true, if you consider all video games, Nintendo's history of free games doesn't follow that path. Nintendo's history of free-to-play games is ones like the Mario Kart or the Mario World, where it's like, okay, it's free to play, but then you're not really playing the full game, but then you pay $10. It's like, all right, now you have everything. Right? The only exception to that might be that Animal Crossing mobile game, which was microtransaction-y, collecty bits. But yeah, the game's going to be free on Switch and then mobile, right? So it's
mobile is intriguing.
Yeah, I don't know. There's been a game that's on Switch and mobile yet, and I assume you'll be able to play against each other, but also suggests that the controls of the game will be very simplified.
Yeah.
If you're not playing with mouse and keyboard on a PC or whatever, right? So.
Yeah, and then we'll see how that goes then. That's why I'm hesitant. It's got a bunch of
interesting.
There's a lot going on here, and probably by the next time we do a Tuesday show, there'll be a lot more information. We can talk about this in more depth.
I don't think we'll have more information till it comes out.
I don't know. I see there's already a little more. People have talked about the Pokemon will be grouped into 4 classes, like attacker, speedster, supporter, all around.
That was in the main announcement. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a decent amount of info already.
That's not more.
That wasn't it. That was added to the article I was looking at.
Okay.
I guess this article was probably being written while this was happening. Anyway.
Yeah.
In some other news, there were a bunch of big Supreme Court decisions in the U.S. today. One of them.
This court sessions. I just want to make a small comment here because it's Thursday.
Oh, you got some thoughts about the Supreme Court?
No. I got some thoughts about government in general.
All right.
So even government representatives, right, good or bad, are still laborers, right? They got to have some time off, right?
Yeah.
Vacation days, PTO, maternal leaves, all those things. Obviously, they deserve just like any other laborer, right? Legislating is work. Executiving is work.
Yep. Especially when you get out of national politics. Like a state senator does not get paid much.
Right, exactly. So yeah, they should have some time off. But for example, right, in New York, the legislative session just ended. They had up until there's like a clock ticking, and once the time runs out, it's like, that's it, no more laws, try again next time, right? It's like and here we have the Supreme Court of the United States. Same thing. They had a session. It's coming to an end, which is why we're getting all these, they're getting all their work out, and then they're going to be done until next time. And it's like, fucking excuse me? Like, any of these cases, it's like, yeah, your individual people don't have to work 24/7, 365, even if your job is super important, like Supreme Court justice. But those government institutions need to be open all the fucking time. If something happens, the court's got to be ready to make a ruling.
Well,
if something happens in the middle of summer, we might need fucking laws.
There was also something.
We shouldn't have having these session nonsense. What year is it? 18 something, where you have to travel all the way from one state to Congress to be in session and then go back to your own state in a horse and carriage, right? It's like always in session. None of these first Congress, second Congress, third Congress. It's time to end that shit. There's always Congress is just always on.
So
right?
Scott, one thing.
Call in your vote, right?
I suspect
whatever.
Most of our members of Congress have spent more time in horse and buggies than they have in cars.
That's true. But I'm just saying, in general, all of these very important government institutions, right? No more closing. It's 2021, right?
So I want to preface this by saying that the Roman Empire may perhaps have been far from an ideal form of government. There may have been problems with Rome.
I'm talking about the specific subject of sessions,
but
right?
At several points in Roman history, there was this concept that the more powerful a political role was, the more restrictions there were on that person's ability to live their life and do whatever they want.
Yeah, good.
The idea being, on one hand, if you seek power, it should arguably be made more and more uncomfortable the more power you have, so that no one would want that power for necessarily the wrong reasons. Now, someone might be willing to endure discomfort to have great power anyway, but there is this concept. Imagine if Congress and the presidency were set up such, like the presidency kind of is this way, but imagine if Congress, the National Congress, if you're in it, you have to go live in a dorm. Like your whole thing.
I mean, we've talked about that before, but like that's even beyond what I'm saying, right? All I'm saying here is we don't need to have sessions, right? It's just Congress is open every day. If there's a new law to be proposed today.
There's a systemic and structural problem here. The problem is members of the House get reelected every 2 years, so they need a lot of time to go campaign.
No. You don't have time for no. You're working. You have a job, right? No campaigning. It's not allowed. You can campaign from wherever you are, right?
But they're also structurally expected to spend time in their districts talking to their own people.
Yeah, all right. You can go. You don't have to physically be in Congress for legislating to be on.
Oh, right? No. So now we get back into the problem of
work. My work is still working. No one's there.
So Scott, you realize
we're shutting this thing down. We can still do. The company is still operating.
You realize that part of this is now a partisan issue. The Republicans specifically do not want anyone to be able to be in congressional sessions or vote remotely because they want things to slow down.
That's a separate issue. I'm saying is like, everyone in your whole company goes on vacation, right? It's like the company doesn't stop operating, right? It's like it's still doing its business. It's like there's no, my company doesn't work in sessions, right? Even if we get the whole week of like Christmas to New Year's off, but you know what? We can get new customers during that time, even though everyone is off, right? It's like we're still operating. So even if no one's there because everyone's campaigning or doing other stuff, right? It's like,
so you realize they are operating. In many cases, what's going on when they're not in session are things like aides are working on how to draft a particular law. Negotiations are happening.
If there was a law that they were like, we couldn't vote on the law in time. It's like,
that never happened. That never actually happens. That is only an excuse. The reality is they didn't want to pass that law. That's the only reason that ever happens.
I'm saying remove the excuse, right? It's like, no, you've got all the time.
Well, talking about removing the excuse, the only thing that actually needs to change is removing the filibuster. Make them piss their pants.
Well, I'm talking about even in New York State, there's no filibuster in the New York State Assembly. That
because the reality is they'd never run out of time. There's always a provision to extend the session. The only reason the session ever ends with a deadline preventing the passage of a bill is a bill that they were not going to pass anyway.
Right, but I'm saying it's like, why do you even have this time that you're extending? Just do away with that entirely. There is no end of the session. It's
we can turn that into the Thursday show.
From the moment you're elected until the moment someone else is elected.
So anyway, in terms of there's the good Supreme Court decision that did come down is the Supreme Court has yet again shut down challenges to Obamacare. Millions of Americans.
This wasn't really like a decision in a case. It wasn't one of those ones where they won't hear it. So therefore...
No, they concluded that the plaintiffs trying to undo the law did not have standing at all. So they once again did not rule on the material complaints, but
that's usually how okay.
But in this case it's interesting because pretty much every lawsuit to try to overturn Obamacare was introduced by Republicans and was clearly entered in bad faith because they never made a real argument. They always made really fiddly procedural arguments that every time the Supreme Court said, nah, that doesn't make sense at all.
You gotta wonder who would have standing. Like, who has standing? A private insurance company? Would they have standing? Right?
Arguably not, because a private company does not have a right to do business.
Sure. So it's like, who could even have standing?
Yeah, you know what? Nobody, because every one of those lawsuits was complete horseshit.
Yeah, I mean, while those lawsuits were horseshit, that's another thing that's always bothered me is like the idea that you have to have standing or be wronged to bring a case. It's like, if I'm bringing a case against an individual person because I want damages, then it makes sense to have standing, right? It's like, if you didn't hurt me, why am I suing?
So actually,
right?
that what you're about to argue against is the only reason Obamacare still exists, because the one of the deepest traditions of American, and even to a point British common law, is the idea that you cannot sue someone if there is not either redress or harm of some kind that impacts
I feel like, while it would be harmful to Obamacare in this case, right? If I see that the government has passed a law and I believe that law is unconstitutional, and we've decided that courts have the ability to rule things unconstitutional, which is something you can debate, which I'm not going to get into here, right? So, some people might argue that maybe that was wrong. They shouldn't be able to do that. But if you're going to say that they can do that, then I should be able to any person who is a citizen or is subject to that law should be able, even if they have not been harmed and don't seek any.
So actually, that kind of
just be able to go to court and say, listen, I think that law is unconstitutional, and I want to argue that it is. It doesn't affect me in any way. Other than that, I'm subject to that law because I'm a citizen of this country. Right? I don't need to have, that's all the standing you need for that particular thing.
Well, we could argue that maybe constitutional
person,
challenges should be different. And in many cases, you could get standing in that case if you could show that law could have material. There's a whole complicated, I'm not a lawyer.
Right, but I'm saying even if the law had nothing the fuck to do with me, right? It's like all that matters is I'm a citizen, the end, right? Therefore, it's a law. That's all I need.
So a consequence
that's clearly not the case.
Well, a consequence of that would probably be nut jobs would be filing lawsuits constantly, and sovereign citizens would be a much bigger problem than they are today.
That's true.
So in this case, it's actually more interesting because the lawsuit was saying that Obamacare was technically a tax, and therefore it's unconstitutional. It included a tax, but it didn't follow
Congress has the power to tax, though.
Yeah, I don't want to get into why this was. It's because they passed it in reconciliation. Remember that the Democrats pulled ridiculous shenanigans to pass Obamacare.
Uh-huh.
So those shenanigans are part of why these lawsuits all came up, because no Republicans would back it, and they had to get around the filibuster. There's a lot of reasons why, like the voting rights law can't do the same shenanigans. But anyway, so in this case, Congress got around that problem in 2017 by changing the tax that you would pay if you didn't have insurance to $0. So the lawsuit was saying it's tax. The Supreme Court ruled a tax of $0 is immaterial. It doesn't make sense. It's not, you can't sue if you don't have standing. In this case, it's you can't sue about nothing. You can't sue someone in bad faith. You can't sue someone for literally nothing. So at this point, Obamacare has probably survived, and that's good because Obamacare is saving a lot of lives.
But it's not good enough.
Nope, we need universal health care and the filibuster, etc., communism. But anyway, the ruling that was...
What about the bad ruling?
The bad ruling, probably the worst ruling. So I'm going to super summarize this. Basically, the Philadelphia wanted to exclude one foster care organization from the organizations that it works with and supports to get orphans into foster homes or children who are taken away from abusive parents into foster homes.
So the state of Philadelphia
the city of Philadelphia,
right? Children that have been for whatever reason been orphaned somehow.
Yeah, whatever reason they want to put this child in a foster home.
And the state doesn't have a state
city. This is the
them,
city.
Right?
This is Philadelphia.
Oh, so the city doesn't have a city orphanage, right? They have other foster organizations they work with to bring the children to.
So because there is a Catholic organization that they could work with, but that organization will not in any way allow a non-straight family to adopt a kid. They exclude anyone who is gay.
Okay.
Like, full stop. It is just blatantly discriminatory. They get away with this because they're a religious organization. Philadelphia said, well, you're welcome to keep existing under your First Amendment rights, but we will not work with you because that is discriminatory. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that Philadelphia cannot refuse to work with them on the basis of that discrimination because that discrimination is a protected religious right.
Well, that's just 100% wrong.
Yep, it was a unanimous decision because America's terrible and I don't know what to say about it.
So in that case, you're basically saying that let me just take that to its extreme here.
Right? The extreme is actually exactly what the Republicans are shooting for here.
Well, okay, so let's
the extreme is
right? I create the Scott's Satanist orphanage, and it's like Philadelphia. I have created an orphanage, and I am following all the standards for an orphanage, right? It's like I'm taking care of the children well, right, et cetera, in my Satanist pagan orphanage. Because I exist, you must send children to me. You have no choice. You can't discriminate against me. You have to. The government is now forced to do business with this organization because I have created it. And there is no way to discriminate against my organization because the Supreme Court said so. So now I can set up businesses, right, and the government must do business with me. No bidding needed. I just have to have no other legitimate reason, that I guess, discrimination is a legitimate reason, obviously, morally, but not legally, according to the Supreme Court today.
Nope.
So, I force the government to send me children.
We do need more Church of Satan type things to fight this because the real end game here is a long-term, like decade-long strategy. You've probably seen a lot of news about this recently where Republicans are increasingly using the First Amendment and religious freedom to ensure that closely held terrible, violent, racist beliefs can be protected under the First Amendment so that organizations that are ostensibly religious can basically do whatever the fuck they want. And that is how conservatives are going to try to get around anti-discrimination laws that if we ever get rid of the filibuster, we can start passing more frequently. And it's another fundamental flaw of America that I don't know how we fix. This is a terrible ruling.
My interpretation, right, if I was the judge, would be like, look, freedom of speech. It's the First Amendment. You can go around saying.
No. Remember, the First Amendment also specifically includes freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of all these other things. Speech was not the issue here.
Yes, freedom of religion, meaning you are free to light your menorah and read your Bible and, practice your religion, right? But in this case, right, not choosing giving children to a foster home is not a religious practice that you are free to do. It is something that you are choosing.
I would go one step further. The real solution to this is there shouldn't be a such thing as a religious organization. Any church should just have to be a nonprofit or a for-profit. They could be for-profit. I'm totally fine with that. Just regulated like any other company. No exceptions of any kind.
I also never understood that. If we have separation of church and state, then, the fact that religious organizations have any special difference from any other organization, that's
I would say the government should also not be allowed to work with any religious organization for any purpose.
Yeah, because that's not separation of church and state.
Yep, and it would be fair if they just said, we will not work with any religious group. Full stop.
Yeah, period. I wonder if Philadelphia did that. They might have a shortage of places to send orphans.
That's a big problem here.
Yeah.
Well, part of this is because the problem is the Catholic Church.
Get away with it if they did that.
The Catholic Church is so
decided
big.
Only secular places.
The Catholic Church is so big and runs so many different charities and things that this ruling is dangerous for a lot of reasons, because a lot of places don't have other organizations local that they could work with.
But it's like, in this case, right, Philadelphia is saying we're going to allow children to go to the Jewish orphanage, the Muslim orphanage, and, the other Christian orphanage, right, the Protestant one, but not that Catholic one, right? And I think that's discriminatory. There is, I guess, a legal argument for that being, right? But what if Philadelphia just said no religious orphanages? That might fly, maybe. I don't know. Not a lawyer. I'm just guessing.
Yep. Basically, this ruling is going to make it a lot easier for private organizations to cite that they have a religious or spiritual or personal belief and then refuse clients and discriminate openly and get around every anti-discrimination law. This is a big slippery slope.
Right. Until the government gets its shit together, if that ever happens, right? I think the thing that we can do is, like I was in my Satan orphanage example, is to weaponize the reverse, right?
Yep.
Come up with
It's been successful. The Church of Satan, that is successfully forced open.
It has other issues. The actual organization, Church of Satan.
Well, which one? I always forget. There's a good satanic church, and there's the kind of fucked up one. I forget which one's which every time.
Regardless, you just, come up with, things you can do that are good, right? That are, and decide that those are your religious beliefs, right? Good things.
Church of GeekNights, we believe in
human rights.
Trans rights and voting.
Yeah. And be like, and then when they come to get you, you can cite these cases and be like, no, it's like, we give our orphan kids, we only give them to families with at least, with one non-straight, parent or whatever, right? And it's like
I'd go further. I'd say if the Catholic Church is hiring someone for a job in the church, they can't require that person be Catholic. That would be discriminatory. I would say that's how it should go.
You could, why would you want to work there?
Yeah, well, I mean, why'd you want to work there? A lot of people have jobs because they need to eat, because capitalism has destroyed the world. But
right.
Anyway, the fundamental problem is still we have to undo the filibuster. So I'm curious. One, do any of you listening to this live in West Virginia? I'm just curious. I would not be surprised if we have 0 listeners in West Virginia.
Are there people in West Virginia?
It's the whitest state in America. Like, it's terrifying.
Okay.
But 2, if you do live in West Virginia, call Joe Manchin every goddamn day, because you are literally the only people on earth who he will listen to, and you have undue influence over the world right now. So if you live there, call that motherfucker every goddamn day.
Pretend to live there?
Nah, they actually verify that pretty well, and a lot of politicians will use data showing that people who are not their constituents are calling them as an excuse to pointedly ignore and say that, oh, my constituents are with me. These people are all fake. It's a whole thing.
Just saying, we can maybe find a way to impersonate and convince, because you're just calling on a phone number, right? We can somehow convince them that we're actually the constituents.
I called what's his name upstate because my cell phone's in the 845 area code and shoot him out a while ago.
All right.
Anyway, last little bit of news. I don't know if you noticed, but Batman was trending nationally on Twitter. And what I love about this is that it was one of those situations where I saw people reacting to something, but didn't see the thing. But based on the reactions...
I saw the reactions well before I saw the thing.
But the reactions I saw at first confused me more and actually drove me to where I wanted to know what the real deal was. It was pretty easy to figure out. Basically, DC has a policy saying that heroes cannot perform cunnilingus. Only villains can.
Okay.
Like, kind of literally. You can read this article. I don't know what else to say about that, except there is only one part of Batman that is exposed in his entire goddamn costume. I feel like that's for a reason, and I feel like DC is wrong here.
Yeah, if you want to know more about superheroes and sexuality, there's a Twitter account called there's a I don't know if we talked about this on the show, the Claremont run.
Did we?
The X-Men comics that you care about is the Claremont run, which is, you know, Dark Phoenix Saga, right? All those X-Men comics, right? Mostly written by Claremont, right? John Claremont, who is a very cool person. And there's someone in Canada who's basically working at like a university and got a grant or whatever, and their whole thing is studying the Claremont run, like deep diving. And every single day in the morning, they post a Twitter thread. They also have videos on their YouTube channel. Like they're just nonstop. Like they never run out of things to say about it. And of course, since it's X-Men, there is a lot of commentary about sexuality and, you know, people wearing underwear outside the rest of their clothes. And so if you read that, right, you'll have a very good understanding of, you know, angles on pretty much every other character who wears their underwear on the outside of their clothes, like Batman and Superman, etc. Right? So.
But anyway, things of the day. So, I try not to reuse channels because, you know, that's the thing. Like Scott, we could just do lockpicking lore like every goddamn week forever. Or Tech Mode or any one of those channels. But Joel Haver is a gentleman, and he has made like some fantastic YouTube content. Remember that animation of the adventure guy going off, like that kind of thing? But this video, it's topical to our show topic tonight. It is entitled Dads Checking Into Their Hotel Room. Not only do I find this hilarious, but when I saw this video, me and Emily were sitting on the couch. We were like watching it before we watched our real show. And when they get to the point of looking at the paintings, Emily just looks at me and starts laughing. And she's like, this is you and Scott every time we check into a fucking hotel. Every time.
Maybe.
It kind of is. This is us. This, just, hey, look at this painting over here. Oh, look at that. This is a museum. Hey, it's a pool in this building. Hey, yo.
Some of it's us, some of it's not us.
Yeah,
but.
some of it's not us. It's definitely adjacent to how we interact with hotels.
Oh, is my thing. Oof. Okay, man. I realized that I sent you my link for the thing of the day, but it wasn't there. So here it is. Okay, so somebody, right? Who is this person? ZZ Ain Hip, right? On GitHub has made something really amazing, right? So when it comes to old computers, right? We can generally emulate them, and you know the interface for them is keyboard, maybe mouse, right? So you can get and mount monitor, and even though that you don't have a CRT, you can get a pretty close approximation of old computer, right? Or old game console. You emulate that, you can get a pretty close approximation, right, of old game console by emulating it, right?
Yep.
If you want to emulate old smartphone, you can't really, you know, get a great approximation unless you do it on the smartphone, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and specifically, you know, let's say you wanted to, it's only 10, you know, how old is it? 14 years old, the first iPhone, right? If you want to experience iPhone 1 or, the first iPhone 3G as it was in 2008 or whatever, it's without actually getting one of those phones, that's hard to do. There's no way I know to downgrade a phone once it's been, and a lot of them got updated to newer iOS versions over time. And even if you emulate it, you're not emulating it on a full touchscreen device. Like you know, it's not very. So this person did something really amazing. They created an iPhone app. You can't buy it in the App Store. You would need to use the typical shenanigans to get it onto your phone. But it's an iPhone app written in Swift, right? So it's really, if you look at the source code, the open source code for this app, you can learn a lot about programming for the iPhone. And it's basically, you open this app and the app is the old iPhone, right? So it's like, you're going to be, if you installed this on your phone, you'd be sitting there looking at iOS 14, 15, whatever. You open the app and suddenly you're looking at iOS 1.
Yeah.
And all the apps in there mostly work, and it's very close to pixel perfect compared to the original, iPhones. It's really quite astonishing what they managed to accomplish here. So I'm liking this. I think that would actually be a really cool is if instead of opening VirtualBox and then running Windows 95, if you just literally had Windows 95.exe and you double clicked on it and you ran it full screen, and there you go, it's Windows 95. It's not an emulator, it's just an app, right? So that's what this is. It's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it's neat
and
stuff.
I like that it's preserving, right, something that has a higher chance, I think, of being lost. Because who was thinking about preserving that? Because it doesn't feel that old, but actually it is in bad need of preserving.
Yeah.
Right? Because how many iPhone 1s and 3Gs are out there that are still working? Right? Not too many.
Yeah. And especially imagine 30, 40, 50 years ago, this will be important for researchers and historians, this kind of information, just like with video game preservation.
Also, I didn't realize, like, you know, you tend to have this, like, Windows 95 as like this UI and this experience that's like really baked into, you know, in my life or whatever, right? In the minds of people who used it. I had an iPhone 3G, but then I upped only for 2 years, then had iPhone 4, and then I had iPhone 5, right? And so I didn't you know, but so it wasn't like baked into my life experience, this old, you know, UI that, you know, was completely different from what we have now with its, you know, what did they call it? What's the word for it? Where you make stuff that looks like real materials.
The AirSats?
No, it's that word that
Faux retro? I'm not sure what.
No, what the hell is that word?
I'm not sure where you're going.
Someone out there is yelling the word. You know, it's when you design, like, you're making an app and you make like wood. You know, it looks like wood even though it's software, right? You know, that kind of thing. But anyway, that's what iPhone 1, you know, iPhone 3G, that's the UI they had, right? And I didn't realize, like, how I had forgotten it. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, whoa.
I realized I was thinking back because my first smartphone was actually a Palm device. I cannot remember what anything looked like in that entire UI. Except the integrated chat stream, the one good thing that Palm had, where my communications with a person across all the apps would be in one stream.
Oh, skeuomorphic design.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
in the meta moment, we're going to be live at PAX East Online 2021 with a brand new panel that, while it is the same topic...
Is it actually brand new, though?
Well, it's a totally different new slide deck with new talking points, and it is also a completely different set of Atari games. So back in 2016, we did a panel, and we did this at a few cons because it was pretty popular, called Atari Game Design, where we'd talk about Atari game design a little bit, and we did a thing, and then we just play multiplayer Atari games and go deep into their crap.
We did this one time, I think.
No, we did it 3 times.
I remember doing it 0 times.
It feels like it's been...
let's do this panel again, and I'm like, what?
I think the difference is because I do the producer work for GeekNights, so like I manage our appearances schedule and all that. So I have a little local database of every panel we've ever done, and also I get the stats. Like, this is one of the panels we uploaded to YouTube in 2016 that gets consistently watched to this day a lot. It was also one of the few panels we did that filled the room every time we did it. So there was a big energy in the room that we often don't get now because very few panels that are giving something away fill up at pretty much any convention anymore. Giving away something or announcing some like AAA property. But anyway, this version of the panel talks about a different area of the game design, and we focus on single player games and especially the demake or degraded version of arcade games that were ported to the 2600. So this will never have been seen before. It's like 90% new content. It'll be at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, July 17th in the PAX 2 Twitch stream. And we'll be hanging out in the PAX Discord. If you have any questions...
Discord. Oh, it's going to be on Twitch. Okay.
It'll be on Twitch, but we'll hang out in the Twitch chat and the Discord chat. And I assume there's a YouTube stream that maybe I'll hang out in. We'll see.
Okay.
I'm up
in other meta, right? Other conventions so far, we don't know if and when they're happening, right? For sure. But I just want to reiterate that we are having a policy here at Geek Nights of if a convention is safe to have, obviously we want to go to a convention.
Yeah.
Right? I haven't been to a convention in forever. I want to go to a convention and play board games all day real bad. But if a convention is going to require masks, all right, I'm not saying that's a bad idea, right? It's like, obviously masks are good.
Yeah.
And you should have safety precautions, right? But if, you know, the analogy I just keep going back to is someone's so confident that a plane is safe, why are they telling me that I have to wear a parachute at all times? It's like, I just won't get on that plane. It's like, maybe you want to get on that plane. Okay. Right. The parachute is going to help you increase safety. Right. I'm sure. But if you tell me the plane is safe, you're so confident in it, why are you making everyone wear a parachute at all times? Is it really safe to get on that plane? I've lost confidence now. So if you tell me the convention is safe, but you're having limited attendance and you're having masks required,
or any social distancing rules inside of the convention.
Yeah, it's like, well, maybe you're not so confident, or maybe A, someone's forcing those restrictions on you against your will, in which case, okay, you got to do what you got to do. But B, if you don't think it's safe enough to hold the convention at the normal capacity with no restrictions, as before, then clearly there is a danger, and I'm going to choose not to go to that convention, which means there's going to be a time period, clearly, where people who run conventions need money.
Like Otakon is happening. It's a mask required, limited capacity, socially distanced event. Yep. That sounds like a nightmare.
Right. Yep. So from now, for the next months, year, who knows how long, there is going to be a period where conventions are happening, but that they have various restrictions that limit attendance, require masks, do other sorts of things. We're not going to those conventions. We're going to go to conventions in person again when they are as they were in 2019. Just as many people as the fire marshal allows, no masks, no nonsense. You just come as normal, buy a badge, and show up.
Yep.
Then you'll see us at physical cons again. Until then, online cons only. If they stop having the online cons in favor of the limited in-person ones, we're just not going to be at cons.
Or we'll do the thing. We'll do the thing that I'm not going to actually say out loud, because then we might shit talk it.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm thinking about that thing a lot, but like seriously.
So yeah, so I'm just letting our policy be known in advance. I don't see us changing our minds on this.
Nope.
So if you're wondering if we're going to be at a convention or not, just refer to this statement.
Yep. If the convention has a mask policy,
if you hear an announcement of a convention happening, just look at what they announce, and you'll figure out if we're going to be there or not.
Yep. Otherwise, check us out on the internet. The book club book is The Tale of Genji. I stopped making progress.
I read a couple more chapters.
Uh-oh, I got to catch up then, because I did not read it for the past week because I've been busy.
I read a really hella long chapter.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm confident by the end of July, we'll probably do this book club book.
We'll see. I still have, I think there were 50 something chapters, and I'm maybe around 10,
right,
maybe 20.
I'll hedge. August, definitely.
We'll see.
If we don't make it by August, what the fuck?
We'll see.
So, a thing that we do a lot, and I've been doing even more. I mean, obviously, COVID made this weird. We're just not going to talk about COVID times in this. But in my life, I have stayed in a terrifying number and variety of hotels and motels. They have been a huge part of my life as a kid, growing up, as an adult, in business, going to conventions. The kind of work I do means that I do a lot of business traveling, so I end up staying in a lot of hotels of varying quality all around the world, and somehow we've never talked about this. We've always talked about everything else around travel, but not the hotels themselves.
Yeah, so I mean, hotels are actually really fascinating. I'm not an expert on the history of hotels. So if someone is or wants to research it, or maybe I'll research it on my own later, please correct me on everything I'm about to say, because it's probably wrong. But the way that I've interpreted the history of hotels is that in the olden times, you'd have the inn, the taverns, like D&D or whatever, right? Or Slayer, right? Because traveling was very difficult, right? And so how many people were really in your town who didn't live there, that weren't staying with someone they knew in the town, right?
Yep. Because in the old days, any traveler would have to stop in a lot of towns along the way.
You have to stop in a lot of towns, if you're going really far, you can't make it that far in one day. You pretty much just stop every town, right? You're going to maybe make it one town in one day. Who knows how far apart they are? You might even have to camp between towns, right?
Yeah.
So, you'd just be renting a few rooms above the tavern would be enough for the few travelers.
I know there was a lot of common room stuff where people could basically, a lot of small towns would have a tavern that would just sort of stay open, or a town hall that would just be open to travelers at night.
I'm curious about what hotels were like in a place like Rome, like a big city, right? People travel to Rome, where, what would they stay in, right?
So from what I know, shockingly close to a modern hotel in surprising ways.
That's unsurprising, actually. But
Yeah.
just,
Well, because humans are the same humans now that they were then. Like they had the same
Right.
ideas, had a lot of the
Right.
same needs.
Now, I know from movies, which obviously movies aren't, nonfiction most of the time, but, they're generally representing the world as it is for the people at the time. And I know from watching a lot of movies, especially from the early 20th century and from just common sense, that traveling even then was still difficult, right? The airplanes didn't come about quite so, that early, especially not commercial jets, not until a little bit later. Later 20th century where they even accessible to a lot of people. So, you're going by boats, cars, right? So you weren't traveling that far at once. And if you did travel somewhere, like let's say you went to Europe on a boat, it's like you're staying there a while. You're not just turning around for a quick trip to London in 3 days and getting on another boat home, right? You'll spend weeks on the boat. You're spending weeks in Europe. So a hotel was a place that someone would be like, could be living for quite a while. You could be like living there, right?
Rich people still do that today. A lot of really rich people will just, they might have a house somewhere or multiple homes, but they will, like a lot of fancy hotels will have floors that a rich person just lives in.
Yeah, people live in hotels absolutely all around the world. People are in that situation, but for different reasons. But yeah, back in the olden days, a hotel was like a place that like a rich person, would live in for quite a period, right? While they were traveling, and the hotel had all kinds of services, right? To, cater to this person who was, living there. You watch a movie, like Grand Budapest Hotel. It's like that was a thing.
Yeah. Like think about, imagine a world before internet and smartphones and video games, and you're traveling and you like stay in some town for a week for some trade convention. Got to like be able to receive mail. Got to be able to like get calls forwarded to you. There's a lot of stuff you needed to just be like, how are you going to get entertained? Just go out every night?
Yeah. So book club book was once Rebecca, right? That book begins with them in a hotel that they're living in, right?
Yep.
That's the whole setup. But yeah, you can see that like the vestiges of that hotel sort of thing, right? That dynamic of place that a person lives for somewhat maybe a long period, right? Represented even in just like a tiny Holiday Inn on the highway somewhere on I-95, right? There's a concierge who is there to, the desk can still provide all kinds of services to the people living there, even though they're probably there for one night and then they're on their way, like laundry and, you don't have a toothbrush or just all kinds of things. Like they're providing all these services to you. Because it's the same hospitality business. There's a restaurant, there's room service. They can bring food to you. Just you push a button.
Now, of course, a lot of this got changed, especially in America, by the sort of destruction of the middle class. The same reason why there's cheap, crappy plane tickets and far too expensive, ludicrous plane tickets and nothing in between. Hotels went the same route in that most people would stay in whatever hotel was cheapest and didn't care at all about the accommodations or the amenities, and especially with the advent of smartphones and tablets and wireless internet, suddenly one of the primary revenue sources of hotels in America, selling people pay-per-view and movies and pornography, disappeared overnight. Everyone just had their own.
Well, they have Wi-Fi, but you can't be getting away selling the Wi-Fi. They tried to sell the Wi-Fi, but it's like, no, it has to be free.
Selling the Wi-Fi worked for a brief period where people didn't have high bandwidth on their smartphones and tethering yet.
Yep, that's true. That's true.
I paid for Wi-Fi many times out of desperation in the old days.
Ooh.
In fact, remember PAX West 2008? The hotel we stayed in gave us free Wi-Fi, and that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's true.
Or in Australia, that was the biggest deal.
Yeah, sure. After that, right, once cars became a thing, you had the motel.
I've stayed until I was an adult. I spent way more time in motels than hotels, and also I had a weird interest in the history of motels, so I kind of know a lot about them.
Yeah. And then I think the final major category, there's plenty of other categories, right? The hostel.
The hostel, the serviced apartment is something I've appreciated more as I get older. And the Airbnb.
Yes, the Airbnb is a new one. And then the bed and breakfast, I think, would be the final category.
Bed and breakfast always seem fun, but I rarely have the reason or time to do that kind of thing.
I always feel like the bed and breakfast is the thing you do because you're visiting a place that isn't really like a tourist destination, right? It's like they don't have a hotel or a motel there. No one's going on vacation there.
Yeah.
It's not a city. The population isn't high.
Well, like, you know where
right?
I've stayed in places like
you
that?
don't know anyone there because it's like a wildernessy place, maybe.
Yep.
And someone runs a bed and breakfast because they have an extra room, and it's like
Where I've
that's
stayed
where
at that
you
kind of
stay.
place is like if you're going somewhere for the primary purpose of outdoor sporting, like wilderness hiking, and that's just the place you're staying for a few days, or
Could be,
if
yeah.
there's an event like a wedding at a small town out somewhere, and you need like that's basically where you stay for a couple extra days just to have a retreat around that event. But other than the event, you don't know anyone there.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think when I think about bed and breakfast lately, I think about, Millerton, New York, where we go on the Harlem Valley Rail Line, which will hopefully return. We'll see. The restrictions are gone. They said restrictions are gone by July 1st.
And
they would have
talk,
it. It's June
talk about
17th.
an outdoor event that has a lot of fresh air around you.
Sure enough, but that's a town that, it has some people, right? There's reasons to go to that town. Some people have reasons to go to that town. But I don't think they have a hotel in the town. I think it's going to be a little far away, right? I've never seen one on the main street.
Yeah, people seem to drive from far away or do what we do and just camp in that baseball field the night before.
Yeah, I haven't seen a motel. We camp on the baseball field, but I think if you're going to stay like on that main street, there must be a bed and breakfast near there somewhere.
There's
right?
got to be. People go up there to have like
be one.
Yeah. There's also a big industry, especially in the New York area, that does not apply to a lot of places, where a lot of people like to head upstate and go to a bed and breakfast for a weekend to do a little retreat and just be out of the city.
There are, I think I have seen some bed and breakfast that like cater to a specific interest.
But there's one in Beacon that's like bird watcher focused. Like you're a bird watcher.
Oh, is there?
You come upstate,
okay.
you can stay in this bed and breakfast. It's not in Beacon, but it's like right near Beacon. And this bed and breakfast has like the only people staying there will be birders probably. And
There's.
oh man,
never
imagine
seen
making
one,
a bed and
but
breakfast like the gamers bed and breakfast.
I was about to say
The tabletop inn.
It probably already exists.
If it doesn't,
there's probably a D&D bed and breakfast out there.
we just gotta call it the Tabletoppers Inn. You put it within an hour of New York City, upstate somewhere.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Kind of really want to do
should
it.
talk.
But anyway, so motels, it's interesting because, we were not a wealthy family growing up. So we rarely stayed in hotels. Like when I was a kid, like we were not in hotels often. We would be in hotels
The only time we went to hotels
on
was like,
specific fancy vacations, like a once a year thing.
yeah, like a Disney World maybe.
Yep, or a Cedar Point.
When we went to other vacation spots that weren't Disney World, we were usually in like serviced apartment that had kitchen kind of place,
Yep.
right? Or motel on the road, or even if it was like technically a hotel, like a Quality Inn or something on the road, it's like that's not, that might as well be a motel.
Yeah.
Right? It's on an I-95
The lines are
exit.
blurry. Like in the old days, there was a much more distinct line. Like motels were characterized by such things as you park outside the door to your room. There aren't common areas. Generally,
Yep,
there aren't like
exactly,
hallways.
yes. The architecture of a motel is distinct, even if there are currently hotels that serve the same purpose that motels used to serve.
Yep. Like you roll in usually on a road trip. You spend the night. You get up early and you get the fuck out of town. It is a place to
Yep.
sleep and nothing else. Maybe you stay there a day to do local attractions and then you continue. They're a very American phenomenon. Like they exist in other places, but like they really. What most people think of as a motel arose in the late 20s and then especially like kind of had a renaissance and exploded in the 50s in America.
Yeah, they're still around. There's still plenty of them.
A lot of them are the
because-
same motels from the 50s.
Yeah, I think it's because, in America, you have this sort of, not only the driving, other places clearly have cars, right?
Yep.
But the long distance driving in America.
Oh, a lot of our vacations as kids, if they weren't like just go to Cedar Point and stay at the Hotel Breakers, which is actually a moderately fancy hotel. To this day, I'm surprised my parents could afford that vacation every year in retrospect. But because I'm thinking about going there post-COVID. That shit ain't cheap. Good God, that is an expensive hotel. But anyway.
We were in Australia. There was basically a motel we stayed at near the Penguin Place.
Oh yeah, that motel was like made out of cinder blocks, basically.
But that was clearly a motel. It wasn't a hotel.
Yep. But generally, what I'd say is
We
modern
actually hit
times.
all three in Australia. We started in hotel.
Yep.
We went to motel, and we came back to service department.
We also did something I'd never done in my life until that trip, was get to a town without a pre-booked hotel and just like wander into a random hotel, go to the front desk and be like, hey, you got any rooms tonight? And it's funny because
I knew it was, well, I think we called them on our way there.
we called one on the way there and they were booked up. Then we called another one, they were booked up. We're like, all right. Then we got to town and every hotel was booked up. We told that story on Geek Nights. But the way I'd characterize the difference today is that hotels have amenities and motels don't. Like that's kind of
Motels have some amenities.
they have a different set of amenities. They'll have like this bare minimum set of amenities. Like
Right.
a motel will have an ice machine somewhere you can refill your
Yes.
cooler with.
Yes, it usually will. Yes.
But I spent most of my childhood going to motels because a lot of our vacations were road trip to somewhere. Like we're driving to Florida or we're driving to Alabama. Like let's go, stop in a motel every night along the way, do the local shit, and then move on.
Mm-hmm.
But when I became an adult, I started staying mostly in hotels because most of the travel I do is either vacation, work travel, or Scott and I are going to a convention.
Well, I think it's most of the travel is we're in a city, right, already, and we're going to a different city.
Yep.
It's like we get to the other city with a plane or a bus, right? We're not stopping along the way. Someone else is transporting us, right?
When I was on my way to Otakon, my goal was to get to Otakon as fast as possible to do Otakon. I don't give a shit about what's in the way.
It's like even going to Australia, like the farthest I can possibly go. It's like, well, I take a train to an airport or a bus to an airport, whatever. I get on a plane. It takes me all the way to California. Another plane takes me all the way to
plane was
Australia.
arguably a motel because I slept on it a couple times.
Arguably, the plane is the motel. It provides all kinds of services, right? And it's like I get off the plane, and then a car takes me to the city. It's like there I am.
Yep.
There's no point at which I need any motel biz. It's like I'm in city, and then I'm in city. So, there isn't that sort of road trip thing going on that require, since the 90s, I guess.
So I guess I want to make a clear separation in our conversation between the business travel. I'll talk about that at the end because that's
I forgot the sort of like resort hotel.
Ooh, I kind of just lumped that into hotel in my brain.
Yeah, but there's a little bit different. I'll talk about that because I was in one somewhat recently.
Oh yeah, that trip you guys did because
we just went to a tropical island because I was like, hey, why not?
Yeah, or way back when Emily and I went to Costa Rica, we stayed in one of those places for several days before we went up to do the real trip where we actually did stuff other than just stay in a resort.
Mm-hmm.
But so most of the hotels that Scott and I stay in these days are literally we are at a convention and we just need a hotel, not a motel. It has to be a hotel that is as close to the convention as possible. That's pretty much my only requirement is as close to the convention as possible.
And it's not horrifying. But
Not horrifying?
Almost none of them are. Right?
And not just ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. I mean, like even a run-of-the-mill Marriott is like, okay, fine, but whatever.
Yeah, but like I don't want to pay, like if there's a hotel that's closer to the convention, but it's $500 a night, I'll stay a few blocks away in that
You're
case.
not going to stay at the Four Seasons.
No. I need like two
money.
at a PAX. I need like
money.
I need like 2.5 seasons tops.
2.5 seasons.
It's funny. I didn't quite recognize the material differences between a 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star hotel until I started doing business travel. Like that's something I ignored, but they're kind of specific. The differences I've realized.
Yeah. So the one time I experienced, I guess the first time I experienced the 5-star hotel. I was the first job I had after college, right? There was this weird I don't know what it was. I don't remember what it was for, but basically my boss's boss was having a staycation in the Mandarin Oriental in Manhattan, even though the dude lived in Connecticut and worked in Manhattan. And they had decided there was going to be some sort of like, it was our team was very small. It was like 5-6 people, right? But they had decided for some reason, I forget, that it was going to be like a little party get together in the bar restaurant area of the hotel. So I had to go there. And when I went there, all I really remember about going there is that usually, when someone's trying to be hospitable, right? Like extra hospitable, right? Like, oh, good sir, is that right? It can usually come off as like corny, trying too hard.
Yep.
It's like when you go into a retail
Like it feels
store.
fake and it makes me uncomfortable, and I imagine
Exactly.
they're also uncomfortable.
Exactly. Like you go into a retail store and someone's like, "Oh, can I help you?" Like that sort of feeling, right? Like they're
Yep.
trying
It's
to
like
cater
someone
to you.
someone told you to say those words to me, and you'll get fired if you don't say them. I don't want you to help me. I'm going to give you an out because I also do not want your help. I'm fine. It's a hardware
Right.
store. I'm looking at hammers. They're right there.
And all I remember is that at the when I went to the 5-star hotel, right, just for dinner, right, they were still doing that same, what were they doing? Same hospitable stuff. How can I help you, sir? Right? But the manner in which they did it, right? Whatever hospitality
They
training.
sneak it in. It's slippery. I'm the kind of person where like someone tries to take my bags, like a bellhop, and I'm like, "Fuck you, no, stay away from my bags. I don't know you. That's my purse." But
Whatever hospitality training that they had, right, is somehow they have something psychological about it. Somebody out there must be an expert on this hospitality science, right? Where they're able to, "Oh, good sir, can I help you?" Right? Like offer you services, cater to you, try to rub your feet and, kiss your ass and everything.
Yep.
Without making you feel like it's out of place or awkward or unwanted, right? It's just like
it's like
nice.
magic.
It's too nice. It's like no one deserves to be treated this nicely, and you're not feeling uncomfortable because it's, intrusive. You're feeling uncomfortable because no one deserves this level. No human should be doing this to any other human, right? Providing this level of niceness. This is too nice. And that's why it costs $500 at least. So
I think the best hotel, because business travel is this whole different ballgame, especially with the industry I'm in. So I pretty much just get put up in 5-star hotels all the time. The best one I've ever stayed in, like that type of travel, was this Marriott in Singapore that's kind of downtown. That's the one where there was the Pinkie Pie Lambo, the Lamborghini painted to look like Pinkie Pie with a big Pinkie Pie on one side and a Rainbow Dash on the other side. It was the fanciest car parked at that hotel because, fancy hotels will do a thing where the richest person's car that happens to be there will usually be put out front to kind of show off. Like that person gets to show off their car. That was the car that was parked in front of this JW Marriott there. But I could literally not afford to stay in this hotel in my normal life. I could only stay here if someone else paid for me to stay there. The level of like amenities and service, and that, just like you described, it's like oily and it gets in under your skin. The next thing you know, they're doing all these things for you without you even asking. You don't even notice. Like, I get up, I left my suit to be pressed because I had meetings the next day. I don't have my suit on. I just have my shirt on. I walk downstairs. I go to the breakfast that's free. And someone just comes to my table without asking and just puts my suit next to me on a little hanger. Pressed and ready for me to put on to go about my day. And in the pocket of that suit, there was one little candy in the pocket. It's ridiculous. But when I'm not doing business travel, that is not worth that money, like ever.
No.
When I
even if I was mega rich, I wouldn't keep enough money to do that, but also
but like I don't
spend the money on that.
But the difference is when I'm
those hotels basically shouldn't exist, right?
Like the big difference is a business traveler is like there to do work all day and is like ostensibly needs to be efficient. And the idea is like, I don't have time to think about how do I get my laundry done? Like I got to work like 9 to 6 every day while I'm in this town. Like I don't have free time. So the hotel amenities are like, I need an office to go do work in. I need to print shit out. I need to like rent a conference room to like have a meeting. My laundry just got to be done because I'm flying out in a couple days to go somewhere else. But when I go to a convention, I don't need shit. I don't need anything. The hotel is a bed to sleep in. Maybe it's a place to play a role-playing game. Like, the only thing I really need out of a hotel when I travel with Scott and Emily and we do our normal stuff is a bed to sleep in and hopefully a lobby, a bathroom, and a lobby that is suitable to play games and get some snacks at night in, maybe.
Pretty much.
I do appreciate the common spaces a lot in hotels at conventions, but not in non-conventions.
No. So the final one is the resort hotel, right? So the resort hotel, what sets it apart, I think, is services-wise usually not too different from regular hotel, right? Is that it's joined at the hip with some sort of destination, right? Like a Disney World hotel. I'm not talking about the ones just in Orlando. I'm talking about the ones that are at Disney World, right? It's like it's part of, the hotel becomes part of your destination.
Yeah.
It's not
like
just
I've been to Disney
staying.
World as a kid where you stay outside and like drive in or take a shuttle in every day. But when you're in the resort itself, it's like the outside world doesn't exist. It's
Right. Or like the beach, the beach resort hotel. It's like, yeah, you are coming to Tropical Island, right? And it's like the Tropical Island has many beaches, but this part of the beach belongs to that hotel.
Yep.
You are going to that hotel's beach. Not only is the hotel the place you are staying, it's also the beach you're enjoying, right? You're going to enjoy the thing the hotel has. It is both your reason for being there and the place that you are staying while you are there at the same time.
Like for me, it was the Hotel Breakers, which was the resort hotel that Cedar Point was built next to later. So it is like the hotel. It's basically inside the park. It has its own private beach. Like it's heavily integrated with the experience of I'm going to Cedar Point.
Yep. So it's like we would go to I was on a tropical island. We went to
Apparently
the hotel.
John Philip Sousa would frequent that hotel. I didn't realize that.
Okay. And then we'd wake up in the morning, right? And we would go outside and just, the hotel, we would go right to the beach that was part of the hotel. And sit in the beach chairs that were owned by the hotel.
Now, it's interesting because
the only other people in the water in that area were hotel guests.
But those experiences, like it's different from the rich person business travel I described, where the amenities are focused around like these tasks. The amenities at these resort hotels are more like make you forget the outside world exists and like don't bother you with the details. So like you'll be on the beach, and some places you can like wave, and a person will just walk over, and you could be like, "Yeah, could I get some orange juice?"
They could have done that. We could have done that.
They'll just come back.
On the beach.
They'll just come back with some orange juice. They won't charge you any money. They know who you are. They'll just add it to your bill.
Yeah. Also, usually the resort hotels, if they do not have something directly as part of themselves, they are heavily integrated with the tourism industry in the area. So, for example, we went snorkeling one day, right? How did we go snorkeling? Well, when I arrived at the hotel after we dumped our stuff in the room, I went to the concierge and I was like, I want to look at the list of stuff to do. And I was like, I want to do that, that, and that. And they're like, okay, come back to the, and I didn't have to call the snorkeling place. Right. I didn't have to pay, give them a credit, any kind of thing. I just said, those are the things you want to do on these days. And I just wrote down so I wouldn't forget which days it was. And then on like some day, I guess Thursday, I'm just going to say random day, Thursday at 8 a.m., whatever. I walked out of our room. I went to the front of the hotel and the little bus came and took us to the snorkeling.
Yeah.
And it knew that we were supposed to go there. It knew that we had signed up for that. We went snorkeling, and then it took us back.
Yep.
It was part of the
You know what's very much like that, too? All the ski resort hotels are just like that. Like, you go to the hotel, and literally, they'll just be
when
like...
you check into the hotel, they give you lift tickets with your room key.
Yep, like, they give you all the shit, and they're like, the first shuttle to this resort, like, this mountain will be at 8 a.m. Over there. Like, everything's just arranged to get you to the slopes.
The integration, right, is really, and it's a way. And why do they do this? Well, because A, it's nice, it's convenient, but it takes more money out of you, right? If
yes, because I could go
as easy as possible to take more money.
Like, here's an example.
You.
If that snorkeling example, if I was somewhere like in Costa Rica at a resort, I could go online, look at all the snorkeling companies in the area, figure out which one was the best value, call them, try to get an appointment. Or I could just say, hotel, take care of this. Of course, the hotel is going to give me the most expensive one and take a cut.
Well, no, not the most expensive one, but the one that they have a deal with, right? The hotel is probably going to get a cut of my snorkeling
the cut's
fee.
the important thing. It's probably not going to be the cheapo one.
Probably referral fees, going in on there. Right?
It would probably be cheaper if you arranged it all yourself. But the whole point of a vacation is to not have to deal with that crap. But also they have an ulterior motive of the more they reduce that friction, the more you might spend if you wouldn't otherwise. Kind of like when I quit that job where
it was really easy to go. So maybe it was so easy to go snorkeling. Maybe when I get back from snorkeling, I walk past the concierge and I'm like, hey, can I go parasailing tomorrow? Okay.
Yeah. You're like, hey, what else can I do? Like
1, 2, 3.
They might suggest something you didn't even think you wanted to do. And then you're like, yeah, I could do that. And they'll almost
I don't
always
have to go to work. I'm on vacation. Take my money.
They will almost always, these resort hotels, not tell you what something costs unless you ask. I have noticed that. It's kind of like how a restaurant, the fanciest restaurants often just won't have prices in their menu. One, that's a danger sign. Get the fuck out. You're in deep shit now.
Oh yeah.
But two, like fancy restaurants that have prices, notice when a server, like if you go to a TGI Fridays or like a normal restaurant, they'll be like, oh yeah, our special today is blah. It's $49 or $12 or $8. But if you go to these fancy places, and resort hotels do this for everything, they'll tell you what the appetizers are and what the specials are, and they will not mention the prices at all unless you ask specifically.
Yep. Also, the next level of resort hotel is the one where like the rooms are somehow integrated, right? So like they'll be like your room is literally on the beach and like has a hot tub and you walk right out onto the sand kind of thing. To where now the room is your destination. You're like, I want to go vacation to that room. Look how amazing that room is. And you spend your vacation.
I was thinking about this years ago when Emily and I did that trip to Costa Rica, because it's actually really cheap to rent like a whole giant house on the beach with like private hot tub and everything. Like way cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, a lot of tropical places are like that. Low key thought about doing a party at a place like that. I just never followed up because that was a pain in the ass to coordinate the logistics of.
But yeah, hotels and travel are really fascinating. I guess let's end on the Airbnb because that's the new development, right? It's like that's so I'm not a fan of Airbnb specific, not only because it's, there's a lot of problems with it. It's almost as bad as Uber, but not quite. But my number one gripe with Airbnb is that, at least in the United States, is that there's a set of regulations around hotels, right? That are all mostly, regardless of how well they're enforced and or whatnot, they're mostly good with intent, right? Hotels have to have certain fire safety requirements, and they have to, some of those services they provide are services that, are, like I said, are vestiges of the old times, or they just do it because it makes them money. But some of them, they're required to provide.
And sometimes even comes down to the capacity of the local infrastructure or community to take on a bunch of visitors. Like there's a lot of stuff going on there.
The hotel has to have an elevator and be ADA compliant. And it has to, there's just certain things that an official real hotel must do, right? And Airbnbs, basically, much like Uber taxis, avoid all the laws about what taxis have to do. Airbnb is just someone renting their house or apartment out for a very short period of time. And none of those regulations are applying to that place.
Never mind the fact that a huge number of things on Airbnb are being like straight up illegally rented out because they are buildings that, for local laws in many cases, cannot be used as hotels because that's a big problem in big cities.
Yeah, you can have a place that is like not suitable for habitation and definitely not suitable for temporary habitation, and yet someone gets rented out on Airbnb and makes some money, right? And it's like, that's, not cool that someone should be allowed to do that, right?
Yep.
If you're gonna have, a shelter and charge people money to stay in it, that shelter should have to meet certain requirements. Right. But that being said, the fundamental concept of you are the renter or owner of a space that you are not in need of and someone else needs a shelter, I do think you should be able to come to an arrangement as long as the shelter is suitable.
A good example, because I just booked one, is a beach house. Like if someone owns a beach house, like they just own it, it's their private beach house. It makes sense that there should be a framework to allow that person to rent it out to other people when they're not using it.
Yeah,
within reason.
That's just efficient use of resources, right? Yeah. So that part of it it's just the details, right? That I don't like Airbnb specifically. The concept, though, the core of shelter is unused, someone else wants to use it, we can arrange that. That is good.
Well, all we really need is some regulations around this, because the main problem with Airbnb is specifically in cities where the properties that are unused, that are being rented out, would be used. They were purposefully made unused to then be sold for a profit via Airbnb.
Exactly. If you look at you could look at an apartment in New York City and the rent on that apartment could be like $3,000. You're like, holy shit, that's a big rent, right? For like a 2-bedroom or some shit. But guess what? An Airbnb will make $3,000 at $500 a night in 6 days. That rent of $3,000 would be for 30 days. 5 times as much revenue from Airbnb instead of renting.
Yep.
Right?
I mean, look, my rent, this apartment, I pay well over $100 a night. If this were a hotel, I'm paying over $100 a night, like well over, to live here.
Whoa.
Yeah. This ain't a cheap apartment.
We're paying, I don't know if we're paying. I got to figure that. Oh, no, because it's times 2. It's 2 people here.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Anyway.
Yeah. But anyway, you know what a hotel costs in this neighborhood? Like $400 a night.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I could, like, literally just get another apartment, rent this one out on Airbnb like a hotel. I would make so much profit that I could pay for both apartments with that.
Well, judging by my math, right? 400 a night. Well, you will use your more conservative number, 400 a night, right? So instead of the 100 a night that you are paying, right? So that comes out to 4. So you could actually, by Airbnb one apartment, you could then use the money you get. You had to pay 1/4 of that to pay for the rent.
I could get 3 more apartments and just live in them.
You could get 3 more apartments or get 3 more and rent 2 of them out on Airbnb.
Yep.
But it's like,
and the end run of this, you see, is I'm a slumlord now.
An apartment 3 times as nice as the one that you're in.
Yep. Or more likely, I am now a slumlord, and I am just siphoning money out of the economy and people in the world into myself and providing nothing.
Yes. So I think, there should definitely be some sort of regulation that if you are, hoteling something that is an apartment, that the price needs to be per night, the rent divided by the days 30.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of the thing is, we just need regulation that's sensible, but that's impossible in America for all the reasons we've talked about a lot. Get back to that West Virginia thing and Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
Hotels
are kind of cool. There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of, interesting things going on there.
And I tell some anecdotes. We've already gone on really long on this episode, and I'm hungry, so I kind of want to wrap it up.
I ate first. That's why.
Yeah. Damn it. It's weird how much I miss hotels, because usually when I go into a hotel, that is because I'm about to also be at a gaming convention.
Yeah, sure.
Either a gaming convention or a party or a vacation. And
we didn't even talk about like hotels also being in the business of renting out ballrooms and stuff as a side business, catering and whatnot.
So maybe we got some Thursday shows here. But anyway, we've made enough of a show and I'm done. So I'm going to end the stream right now.
Okay, bye.